Hello, welcome to ResoCoder. In this tutorial you are going to learn how to send Firebase Cloud Messaging messages whenever a new message is added into a chat channel. We're gonna do that by utilizing another service of Firebase, and that is Cloud Functions. So without any further ado, let's get right to docs right over at firebase.google.com, and let's scroll a bit down, and here are Cloud Functions. You can also just simply click on the link in the video description. Right here under Key Capabilities, we can see that there are some Cloud Firestore triggers, and we are going to utilize them in this tutorial. So let's click on Get Started here. And in Setup and Initialize Firebase SDK for Cloud Functions, it writes here that first install the Firebase CLI, which is command line interface, as described in Firebase CLI reference. The Firebase CLI requires Node.js and Node Package Manager, which you can install by following the instructions on nodejs.org. And an important thing is that Cloud Functions runs Node.js v6.14.0, so we recommend that you develop locally with this version. If you are a web developer, you probably already have Node.js installed, in which case it doesn't really matter what kind of a version you have. There's no need to downgrade to this old version 6.14. However, if you don't have Node.js currently installed, it's probably not a bad idea to install the version 6.14. So let's do it right now. Let's go to this link, nodejs.org, and now we want to download the version 6.14. So you can just download 8.11.1 at this point and you should be good to go. But let's download the older version, so let's go over to Other Downloads, Previous Releases down here. And also you can download this from the link in the video description. You don't need to go through all of this. And now let's scroll down and let's find 6.14, which is 6.14.0 is right over here. So we want to click on Downloads. And because I am on Windows, I want to download this v6.14 x64 MSI. So you just download this and you install it as usual and you are good to go. Now let's go back to the Firebase documents. Once you have that installed, you want to open up command line, so cmd, and you want to write this command, which is npm install g firebase tools. I'm not going to do that because I already have it installed. We can close the command line, and now we need to initialize our project. We want to run Firebase Login. I am already logged in, but otherwise you would just type this Firebase Login into your command line as usual, and you would be taken into a sign-in flow through your selected default browser. Just a normal Google authentication, nothing fancy about that. And after you have signed in with this Firebase Login command, you want to open up your Firebase project directory. And what is that? Well, we are going to create that, and I've already done so. Just create a simple folder anywhere you like, and that can be your Firebase project directory. Now right-click somewhere inside here, and we want to open up a command line in this folder. If you don't have such an option available, you can also copy the path to this folder, so Ctrl-C. And now go over to command line, right click, it's going to paste that inside there. But before we right click, we actually need to write cd. So cd, right click, and you will be taken to that directory. Now let's look what we should do next. We should run Firebase init functions command. So let's copy this and let's paste it inside the command line by pressing the right mouse button and enter. And I've just made the font a bit bigger so you can see better. So are we ready to proceed? Yes, we are. Now let's select a project for this directory. We want to select Fire Message and hit enter. What language would you like to use to write Cloud Functions? You can use JavaScript or TypeScript. TypeScript is probably better, but we are gonna write this in JavaScript for now. And do you want to use ESLint to catch probable bugs and enforce style? Yes, we want to lint this thing. And do you want to install dependencies with Node Package Manager now? Yes, we want to do that. So this is going to take some time. And Firebase initialization is complete. We can now close the command line and go over to Android Studio for a while. We want to go to Java, the first package, then model, and we want to open up message. And we want to add two new properties inside here, which will be val recipient ID of type string, and also val sender name, which will be also of type string. Now we want to add these fields inside all of the classes which implement this message interface, and those classes are text message, so override val recipient ID, and also override val sender name. And we are gonna pass empty strings in the constructor for those properties. Now let's do the same thing for image message. So here are the added properties, and we also want to add them to the constructor. We've added these fields now because we will need to retrieve them in Cloud Functions, because we need the recipient ID in order to retrieve the recipient's registration tokens for Firebase Cloud Messaging, because whenever a message is added to the chat channel, we need to notify the recipient. And how else are we going to find out what his registration tokens are if we are not going to retrieve them from the database by using this recipient ID? Because remember, every user has his registration tokens for Firebase Cloud Messaging inside the database. And then the sender name is here because we want to display a name who sent the message in the notification. Now let's open up chat activity. And right on top, we want to add a new property, current user. It will be also private late init var. And it's going to be of type user. How else? We are going to get it inside onCreate right after setting the support action bar. And we want to get it from Firestore. So Firestore util, we want to get current user. And we want to initialize current user to be the implicit parameter it. We need this current user property in order to be able to send the current user's name to the text messages or image messages right for this property sender name. Here we are creating an immutable variable other user ID, but we need to transform this into a property. So let's create a property right now, other user ID. It will also be a private late init var. And it's going to be of type string. And we've done all of this because we need to modify the instantiations of messages, which are these red things right on the side, which are errors. Because now we have an error because there are two strings left inside the text message instantiation. We can actually delete this message type .text because text message has it implicitly set to be text, as we can see here. So we can just delete that from the chat activity, and instead we need to pass in here the other user ID and then current user, and we want to get the name of the user. So sender name and recipient ID, because the other user is the recipient of our message. Now let's copy this and scroll a bit down, and right inside upload image message, we want to paste these to this line which we copied inside here. Now let's go to our Firebase directory, which we've just initialized. And right over here we have a folder called functions. We want to open it. And inside that we have a file index.js. So open that up. So let's start writing JavaScript. I just want to give a brief disclaimer here that I am not a JavaScript developer by any means. So if you are a JavaScript developer, you may be able to write this code more efficiently, but hey, it works. First up, we need to create an admin constant, so const admin. Consts are something like vals in Kotlin, meaning that they cannot be changed later, and it's gonna be equal to require Firebase admin. And then we want to call initialize app function on this admin object or something, so initialize app. Oh, and don't forget semicolons because we need to use them in JS, just like in Java or C#. Now let's write the actual function which is going to notify us about new messages. We are gonna do so by writing exports, and the function's name will be notify new message, and it's gonna be equal to functions .firestore because we want to use a Firestore trigger, and we are gonna listen to changes on the document which has a path chat channels, some kind of a channel, so curly braces and channel. Curly braces and something inside them means that any channel, not just one channel, but all of the channels will be listened to. Then we want to get the channel's messages, and the document for which we want to listen to its changes is some kind of a message, and we want to listen for document creations, so on create, and inside here we want to pass in a doc snapshot, which is the snapshot of the document which is created, so the message, and then also a context. From this context, you would be able to get the actual document ID of the message or the actual document ID of the channel. Now, equal and a greater sign, just like in C#, if you are familiar with that, and let's get right to it. We want to create another constant message, and we are gonna get that from the doc snapshots data. So doc snapshot.data, and it's a method, so we need to call it. Then another const, which will be recipient ID. This message is the text message or image message which was sent. So this means it has all of the properties that we've declared in the message. And those properties are, for example, time, sender ID, recipient ID, and sender name. So we can get them even from the Cloud function. This means that when we want to get the recipient ID, we need to get it from the message, and we can get it by using an access operator, accessor, right? And the name is recipient ID. Then also sender name. We can also get it from message, and its name is sender name. Awesome, now to notify the recipient, we need to get his registration tokens, and we need to get them from Firestore database. We can get a document from Firestore in this JavaScript Cloud function by calling return, or actually by not calling return, but by returning admin Firestore. We need to invoke this function. We want to get the document with path users, and then we already have the recipient ID, and we want to concatenate this recipient ID over to here. We want to get this document, and then after we get it, we want to pass the user document to this some kind of a lambda or a promise, as it's called in JavaScript. And again, I've forgotten to put semicolons over here. Oh my goodness. So semicolon, 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 just like this. After we have the user document, we can get the registration tokens by calling user.doc.get, and we want to get registration tokens. Now let's create the notification text, which is notification body. And inside the notification body, we are gonna write if the type of the message, so message, and we want to get the type, is text, and in JavaScript, we need to put triple equal signs, not just 2, but 3 for some reason. So if it's text, and now question mark, just like in C#, the notification body will be message text. So message, and we want to get the text. However, if it's an image message, we want to just write simply, you received a new image message, because we are probably not going to display the image in a notification. Now let's build the so-called payload of the Firebase Cloud message. So const payload is equal to a new JavaScript object, which consists of notification part. So notification, colon, and curly braces. Notification contains a title. The title of the notification, which is displayed on the top, will be sender name plus sent you a message. The body of the notification will be notification body, which we have created right here. And last but not least, we need to specify a click action, which is the action that is going to be passed inside the intent, and the intent action that we want to have when we click the notification from our app is chat activity. Later in this tutorial, we are going to use this intent action to add an intent filter to our chat activity to listen for this click action. So whenever the notification will be clicked, it will open up chat activity, And the chat activity will get data, which is the data part of this notification. And the data will be username, and you need to write it exactly as I'm writing here. So capital user underscore and name, which will be sender name, and then user ID, which will be message, and we want to get the sender ID. Names are the same as in app constants inside our app. So when you take a look at them, app constants, here we have username and user ID. The same, exactly the same strings are used inside our Cloud function. When the notification is clicked, it will open chat activity after we implement this intent filter. And we are already getting extras with these names from an intent in chat activity. If we take a look at it, it's right here in chat activity. Right here, we are getting string extra username, and we display it as a title for the action bar. And then down here, we are getting the user ID, and we are putting it inside other user ID from the intent. Now we are passing these values to the intent when we click on the person item inside the people fragment in the recycler view. But when you click the notification, the Firebase Cloud Messaging is going to do the work for us, and we will just receive this intent with all of the proper extras. And you know what, I'm tired of these semicolons. Let's wait and see if it will compile and run even without them, because it may, I don't know. Now we want to actually send the Firebase Cloud message. So again, return, admin, messaging, and we want to send to device. We want to send it to all of the registration tokens, so even multiple devices are possible. And we want to send the payload, which we have just created. And after we send that, we are gonna receive a response from that sending of the message. And we want to pass that response inside this anonymous function. And we could just not do anything inside this anonymous function, but we want to delete all of the tokens which are just outdated, which don't have a device paired to them. Because remember, when a user is not like he throws away a phone, he will still have the token registered inside the Firebase Firestore. It will still be there even though the phone may be completely destroyed. Or even when the user uninstalls our app and then just decides to install it again because he likes it and he misses it, he will obtain a new registration token from Firebase Cloud Messaging, but that old registration token will still remain in the Firebase Firestore database. So what are we going to do with all of those old unsynced tokens? Well, we need to sync them, and the best place to sync those tokens so that we only have the actually registered tokens which are in use is that we need to delete them when we send a new message. And that deletion is pretty simple. We first need to get all of the still registered tokens, and at first they will be all of the registration tokens. Then as we go on in the code, we are going to delete some of the registration tokens from these still registered tokens. And then we are gonna put these still registered tokens to the database, overwriting all of the tokens, so the unused ones will be effectively deleted. Remember that we have a response here, which we have gotten from the sending of the message. So response, results, and for each of the results, we want to get the result and the index and pass it inside an anonymous function. So here we are checking if there was an error for each message. We first want to get the error, which will be equal to result.error, and that can be null. If it's not null, so if error, and if it's not null, this if statement will be true. So we will continue in the code. We want to get the failed registration token, which is equal to registration tokens, which is all of the registration tokens to which we have sent the message. And we want to get the token at index, which is from this parameter, this index, from the for each loop. Now that we have the failed registration token, we can write console.error for debugging purposes. You can do that. It helped me a lot when I was actually coming up with this code for my own app. And we can write failure sending notification to, or just simply blah in this case, because We are not going to debug that, but please write something meaningful inside that error message. And we are gonna write the failed registration token and then the error. And then you can open up the Firebase console, go to your Cloud Functions and see the log, and you will see all of the errors nicely displayed when you are debugging your code in production. Don't do that, please. And now we want to clean up the tokens which are not registered anymore. So if the error code, so error.code, is equal, so triple equal signs, messaging / invalid registration token, or if the error code is equal to messaging registration token not registered. And as always, you can get the code from this tutorial from the link in the video description. And if the error codes are equal to this, we want to get hold of the failed index. And for that we need to search for the failed registration token inside the still registered tokens array. So still registered tokens, and we want to get the index of failed registration token. And if this failed index is greater than -1, meaning that it is actually present in the still registered tokens array, we want to delete it from still registered tokens. We can do that by calling still registered tokens .splice. We want to delete the registration token at the failed index, and we want to delete just one because this is actually the start and this is the delete count. And after the for each, we want to update the user's document with the new registration tokens array. So we are gonna again return admin.firestore, and we want to get the document users recipient ID, and we want to update this document, and we want to update only the registration tokens with the still registered registration tokens. Awesome, now let's go back to Android Studio, and inside the Android manifest, we want to add the aforementioned intent filter to the chat activity. So just write intent filter. We will be filtering for action, and the name of the action is chat activity. It could be anything else, it's just that we are using this name chat activity inside our function here, right inside click action. So this is the action's name, and then we also want to specify the category, which will be Android name, and that will be intent category default. Awesome, and now just last quick change inside Android Studio, which is that we want to go to service, and let's open up my Firebase messaging service, and we want to modify it a bit. We also want to modify this to show notification only if we are not online. And then we are not just gonna simply log FCM message received, but we are gonna log the content, the data content of the message. So remote message .data, and we want to convert it to string. Alright, now we can launch the app inside an emulator, and as the emulator will be launching, we can upload the cloud function to the cloud. So make sure that you've saved the cloud function, so press Ctrl and S 2 times just to be sure. And now go to the Firebase folder, which you just created in this tutorial. And let's also open up the documentation. And if you scroll a bit down, it will write all of the things in here. So now right click somewhere in the Firebase folder, and we want to open up a command line in here, and we want to write Firebase deploy only functions. And this will take some time, so deploying the function. We don't have any errors, just one warning, which is pretty cool. While this is happening, I'm going to launch another emulator because we need to have 2 emulators in order to be able to send messages, right? And an unexpected error has occurred. Most of the time, what we can do is to just run the deploy command again, so Firebase deploy only functions. And after quite a bit of time, the deploy was successful. Now let's go to our 2 emulators. And here I am Matej Reshetar, and in the other emulator I am Donkey Monkey. So we are gonna send a message from this device on the left to the device on the right. So we need to find Donkey Monkey over here somehow. So here he is, Donkey Monkey. And then also let's find Matej Rešetar inside here. Where is he? Here I am. So let's write something nice to Donkey Monkey. Hello. Alright. And we can see that it works. The app actually works in real time. But there is no notification, which is pretty it makes sense. There should be no notification when you are inside the app. Let's check the logcat and let's check for the tag FCM, and we've added this filter in the previous tutorial, this FCM filter. And let's select the other emulator, which is the one on the right, to which we have sent the message. And over here we can see that we've actually received an FCM message, and the data of the message, this data that we are converting to string and then logging it, is that username is Matej Rešetar and the user ID is some ID. So it works. When we come back to the emulators, and on the right hand side device we are gonna kill the app, so it will be no longer running, and I'm gonna write "where are you?" and send that. We will receive a notification on the right device saying that Matej Rešetar sent you a message, and the content of the message is "where are you?" And the notification is from FireMessage, so it works. When we click on this notification, it's gonna take us right to our app inside the proper activity, which is chat activity. We are inside the proper chat channel, so we are good to go, right? We can also test it on the other device. So close that, send a message, hi, and even on this device, we are going to receive a notification from FireMessage. At least we should. If not, then it's interesting. Let's send another message. So hello, and send it. Oh, and I know why this is not working. That's because we don't have any registration tokens inside our database. That's because we haven't signed out since we've added that feature, registration tokens, inside our app. So we need to go inside our emulator and delete FireMessage. Run it again. When we are inside our app, we can still receive messages from Donkey Monkey just fine. And when we close the app, we now should be able to receive the notifications, because when we look inside our database, we can see that we now have registration tokens. That's because we've launched the app with the proper version of the app where registration tokens are actually being registered. So now let's send the final message. And after a while, we are gonna get two messages because we also get the message for A. Oh, right, that's because the messages have a bit of a delay. So when the FCM message actually arrived at our device, at this left-hand side device, the app was killed. Even though when Donkey Monkey wrote the message containing A, the app was still running on the left-hand side device. However, now the messages are being sent properly. So if you are experiencing these errors, please make sure that you reinstall the app if you are following this tutorial series from the beginning. And yeah, so that's it for this tutorial. If you don't want to miss more awesome tutorials like this, subscribe to this channel and also hit the bell button so that you will be notified about all of my new videos. If this tutorial helped you to write a cloud function and to deploy it, and also to connect Firebase Cloud Messaging with your Firestore database and do all of that awesome stuff, please give this video a like and also share it. To get the code from this tutorial, you can click on the link in the video description, which is gonna take you to resocoder.com. If you have any questions regarding this tutorial or any suggestions or anything else to say, leave it in the comment. Follow me on social media and see you in the next video.